I froze when I saw her. My daughter, shivering on the porch, lips blue, snow covering her hair. Inside, his family laughed around the fire, glasses raised. She was dying in the cold while they feasted in the warmth. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it's traveled. Snowflakes bit into my skin as I hurried up the wide stone steps. My hands shook as I clutched the small gift I had brought, wrapped in red paper with trembling fingers. Then my eyes froze on the sight before me. My daughter sat hunched on the edge of the porch, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her thin coat was no match for the bitter cold. Her lips were blue, her cheeks pale, her whole body shivering. The snow had piled on her hair and shoulders, as if she had been sitting there for a long time. "Emma!" I cried, rushing to her. I dropped the gift into the snow and bent down beside her. My heart pounded in my chest. I grabbed her icy hands. They felt like stone. She looked up at me with glassy eyes. They told me to wait out here," she whispered, her voice broken, barely louder than the wind. The words cut into me, sharper than the cold. I turned my head. Through the glowing windows, I saw a feast laid across a long dining table. Silver platters steamed with roasted meat. Crystal glasses sparkled in the golden light. His family sat together, laughing, toasting, their faces warm and bright. A fire blazed in the giant fireplace behind them. The sound of clinking glasses echoed in the night air. And here was my daughter, cast out into the dark. I wrapped my coat around her trembling shoulders. My rage boiled, but I forced my voice to stay calm. "How long have you been sitting here?" She shook her head weakly. "Since I arrived." I felt my stomach twist. My little girl. My only child. Treated like this. I stood up and pounded on the heavy wooden door with my fist. The sound thudded across the night. I waited. No answer. Only more laughter drifting through the cracks. I hit the door again, harder this time. "Open this door!" I shouted. Snow crunched under my boots as I leaned forward, shielding my daughter from the icy wind. My knuckles stung, but I didn't care. Still nothing. I looked down at her. She was trying not to cry, but tears pooled in her eyes anyway. She whispered, "Mom, please, let's just go." Go? Leave? While they sat inside that glowing palace and treated her like dirt? My fists trembled. My throat burned. I wanted to storm in, to drag them all out into the cold and make them feel what she felt. But I knew I had no key, no power against their iron gates and locked doors. Instead, I knelt again, brushing the snow from her hair. "You don't deserve this, Emma," I said, my voice low but fierce. "Not tonight, not ever." The snow kept falling faster now, covering our footprints, covering her small frame. The mansion lights glowed brighter against the storm, mocking us with their warmth. The sound of music swelled inside. Joy for them, cruelty for us. I pulled her close, holding her against me, trying to give her the heat my body still had. But deep down, I felt the ice spreading in my chest. This was not just about cold air or locked doors. This was betrayal. A cruel message sent clear and sharp. She is not one of us. She belongs outside. And that night, standing at the frozen doorstep, I swore I would not forget it. The picture of her sitting in the snow burned in my mind, but another memory cut in sharper. Only hours before, she had stood in front of the mirror, smiling with nervous hope. "Do you think they'll like this one, Mom?" she asked, turning slowly so I could see the soft green dress she had chosen. It wasn't new. She had worn it once before, on Easter. But tonight, she wore it as if it were a gown fit for a queen. She had even curled her hair, letting it fall gently over her shoulders. Her hands trembled as she pinned on the small silver earrings her father had given her years ago. I had watched her, my heart aching. She looked so beautiful, so young, so full of hope. But I could not shake the heaviness in my chest. The invitation had arrived a week earlier. A fancy envelope, gold letters, the family's name pressed across the top. I remembered the way she had opened it, her eyes widening as if a dream had come true. "They want me there," she whispered, but there had only been one card. One name written inside, hers, not mine. "They didn't send one for me," I said, pretending to sound casual. Though the truth cut deep. After all these years, after all the cold looks and sharp words, they still refused to see me. She had grabbed my hand quickly. "Maybe it was a mistake, Mom. Maybe this is just the start. They'll see I belong. Please, let me go. Just this, once. I promise it's different now." Her eyes were wide, pleading. She wanted so badly to be part of them, to be loved by the family she had married into. And I gave in. Against my better judgment, against the whisper in my heart that warned me. I kissed her forehead and told her she looked perfect. I told her to go, to show them her kindness, her grace, her worth. And now, hours later, I saw the truth. The invitation had never been a welcome. It had been a trap, a cruel trick dressed up in gold paper and fancy ink. I thought back to her face. As she left the house that evening, clutching the card, smiling with hope, I remembered standing in the doorway, watching her walk down the snowy street, my chest tightening as she disappeared into the night. And then I thought of her now, broken and trembling on the frozen steps, abandoned like she was nothing. My stomach turned with regret. I had let her walk into the lion's den. I had trusted their false kindness, their polished lies. I should have known better. That night, the golden card with her name no longer felt like a blessing. It felt like a knife. I could not stop shaking as I helped Emma to her feet. Her body leaned against mine, weak and cold. The music inside the mansion grew louder, as if mocking us. My anger pushed me forward. I banged my fist on the door again. This time it opened. A servant stood there, his eyes sliding over me with no respect. He looked at Emma as though she were dirt on his shoes. "They said you should wait outside," he muttered, trying to close the door again. But I pushed forward, holding Emma close to me. The warmth from inside hit our faces at once. For a moment, it felt like stepping into another world. The entry hall shone with golden light. Chandeliers hung high above. Marble floors gleamed like mirrors. The smell of roasted meat and sweet pies filled the air. I heard laughter spilling from the dining room down the hall. Emma lifted her head weakly, her eyes wide with shame. I could see the tears clinging to her lashes. We walked forward, step by step, until we reached the great dining room. My breath caught. The long table stretched across the room, covered with silver dishes and steaming food. Roasted turkey, golden bread, wine glowing in crystal glasses. A fire roared in the giant fireplace, sending shadows dancing across the walls, and around the table sat his family. His mother looked up first. She wore pearls around her neck, her hair pinned neatly in place. Her lips curled when she saw me. "What is she doing here?" she asked sharply. I held Emma tighter. "She was freezing outside," I said. My voice shook, but I made it strong. "Your blood, your daughter-in-law. You left her out there in the snow like an animal." The room went quiet for a moment. Only the fire crackled. Then his mother gave a small laugh, cold, sharp. "She belongs outside," she said. "She will never belong here." My daughter flinched, as if the words were stones thrown at her. Her husband sat at the table, his head lowered, his hands gripping his glass. He said nothing. Nothing. I wanted to scream at him, to drag him up. and force him to defend her. But his silence told me everything. He would not fight for her, not against them. Emma's tears fell silently, her body trembling against me. I pressed her head to my shoulder, shielding her from their cruel stares. The laughter began again, soft at first, then louder, as if we were invisible. Plates clattered, glasses clinked, and the feast went on. I felt rage rise like fire in my chest. The warmth of the room no longer felt welcoming, it felt poisonous. I turned, pulling Emma back toward the door. I would not let her sit one more second in that house of wolves. Behind us, their laughter followed. Behind the golden doors, joy remained only for them. For us, only pain. The car heater blew weak air, but it did little to fight the cold that clung to my daughter's body. The snow outside the window Emma blurred
sat in the
night, passenger seat, streetlights her hands glowing like pressed ghosts. tightly in her lap. I gripped her shoulders the steering curled wheel, as if she my wanted to knuckles disappear, my chest tight with rage and pain. For a long time, she said nothing. Only her quiet breathing filled the silence. Then, her voice cracked. "Mom," she whispered, "I thought tonight would be different." I looked at her. Her face was pale, streaked with tears that kept sliding down. Her eyes were red, her lips trembling. She had taken off her earrings, holding them in her small hands as if they were heavy stones. "I wanted them to see me," she said, staring at the floor. "I wanted them to accept me. I thought if I tried hard enough, if I smiled, if I stayed quiet, they would finally let me in." Her voice broke again, and she covered her face with her hands. The sound of her sobs filled the car, each one cutting through me like a knife. I reached over, holding her shoulders. "Emma, listen to me. You don't need their approval. You are more than enough." But she shook her head, tears streaming harder. "No, Mom, you don't understand. They never wanted me. They only wanted to use me. They invited me tonight, just to humiliate me. And he—" Her voice caught. "He sat there and let them. He didn't say a word." Her words stabbed deep. I remembered the way her husband had sat at that table, eyes down, silent, cowardly. My daughter's pain was something he had allowed. Emma sobbed into her hands. "Do you know what hurts most? I believed him. He told me they had changed. He said they wanted peace this Christmas. I trusted him. And still, he let me sit outside in the snow like I was nothing." Her body shook as she cried, her voice rising and falling in waves of sorrow. I pulled her into my arms, holding her close, rocking her gently as if she were a little girl again. "Shh, my love," I whispered, though my throat burned. "I'm here. You'll always have me." But inside, I burned with fury. Every tear she shed was another reason for my heart to harden. Every sob was another reason I could not stay silent. The car filled with her grief until it felt too heavy to breathe. I kissed her forehead, brushing the wet strands of hair from her cheeks. "Someday," I whispered to myself, "they will regret this." She cried until her body went limp with exhaustion, her head resting on my shoulder. Outside, the snow kept falling, silent, and endless. Her tears were the proof of their cruelty, and I would never forget. That night, after I laid Emma in bed, I sat alone by the window. The house was quiet, but my thoughts screamed inside my head. Snow kept falling outside, covering the streets, covering the pain of the night. I watched it pile higher, white and endless, and I could not calm the fire in my chest. Emma's breathing was soft in the next room. She had cried herself to sleep. I had held her until her tears slowed, until her body grew heavy with exhaustion. She looked so fragile, curled beneath the blanket, her face still damp. No mother should ever see her child suffer like that. I pressed my hands together, my nails digging into my palms. Rage boiled in me, but it was a quiet rage, strong and steady. I thought of her husband, sitting in silence as his family mocked. Her. I thought of his mother's cruel words, her cold laugh. I thought of the locked door, the golden feast, the warmth that was denied to us. My heart pounded harder. They had not just insulted her. They had tried to break her spirit. I remembered the sacrifices I had made for her. Working long hours, skipping meals so she could eat, stitching her dresses late at night so she would never feel poor. Every step of her life, I had fought to protect her, to give her dignity. And now, after all that, this family tried to crush her as if she were nothing. I could not let that happen. The clock ticked slowly, each sound echoing in the silence. I stared at the snowy street outside and I made a promise in my heart. I would not forget what they had done. I would not forgive, but I would not scream or beg. No, my anger would not be wild. It would be sharp, clear, controlled. They would not see it coming until it was too late. I thought of Emma's tears again, the way her voice shook when she said he did not defend her. That memory burned into me like fire. My child had been left alone, abandoned by the man who vowed to protect her. I whispered to myself, never again. The storm outside grew heavier. Wind pressed against the windows, howling like it carried my fury. I pulled the blanket tighter around my shoulders, but the cold inside me did not fade. It was no longer the cold of winter. It was the cold of betrayal. My daughter's heart was broken. Mine was hardening into stone. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. Tomorrow, I would act. Tomorrow, I would no longer stay silent. A mother's love is gentle, but when her child is hurt, that love turns into something fierce, something unbreakable. That night, in the quiet of my room, I became steel. The next morning, I woke with the same fire burning in my chest. The snow outside had not stopped. It covered the streets in heavy white, but nothing could cool my anger. I looked at Emma as she stirred in bed, her eyes swollen from the night before. She whispered, "Please, Mom, let's forget it." But I could not. A mother forgets nothing when her child is hurt. I dressed quickly, wrapped myself in my coat, and told her to stay home. She tried to grab my hand, but I pulled free. "I have to do this," I said. My voice was steady, though my heart beat fast. When I reached the mansion, the golden gate stood tall before me, shining even in the pale morning light. I pushed them open with both hands, the cold iron biting my skin. My boots crunched through the snow as I marched up the long path. I did not knock this time. I slammed the door open and stepped inside. The family was gathered in the living room, sipping coffee, their laughter as strong as it had been the night before. The fire roared again in the fireplace, warm and bright, but the warmth meant nothing to me now. His mother looked up, her eyes flashing with anger. "You," she hissed. "You don't belong here." I walked forward until I stood in the center of the room. My voice was sharp, each word cutting the air. "Last night you left my daughter outside in the snow. You watched her freeze while you feasted. You call yourselves family? You are nothing but cowards." Gasps filled the room. His sisters shifted, uncomfortably in their chairs. His father cleared his throat but said nothing. I turned to Emma's husband. He sat in silence, his eyes avoiding mine. My rage flared. "And you," I said, pointing at him. "You promised to protect her. You swore before God and everyone that you would stand by her side. Yet you let your family treat her like dirt. You let her cry alone on your doorstep." He lowered his head, shame in his eyes, but no words left his lips. His silence was louder than any insult. I faced them all again. "You think you are powerful because of your money, your mansion, your name. But real power is love. Real power is respect. And you have none." The room grew tense. No one laughed now. No one touched their coffee cups. My words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and dark. Finally, his mother rose, her face red with fury. "Get out!" she spat. I smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Gladly," I said. "But remember this, I will never let you break her again." I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. My heart pounded, but my steps were steady. The snow stung my cheeks, but I felt no cold. I had spoken the truth. When I returned home, Emma was waiting by the window. Her eyes were filled with worry, her hands twisting the fabric of her dress. The moment she saw me, she rushed forward. "Mom, what did you do?" she asked, her voice trembling. I placed my hands on her shoulders. "I told them the truth," I said. "I told them what they are, cruel, heartless, and unworthy of you." Her lips parted and tears welled in her eyes again. But these were not the same tears from last night. They were softer, confused, almost afraid. "You shouldn't have gone," she whispered. "They'll hate me even more now." I shook my head firmly. "No, Emma. They already hated you. Nothing I said could change that. What matters is how you see yourself. Do you want to keep begging for scraps of love? Or do you want to stand tall and claim your worth?" She lowered her head, her shoulders trembling. For a long moment, the room was silent. Only the ticking clock filled the space between us. Finally, she whispered, "I wanted him to fight for me." Her voice cracked on the word, him. I brushed her hair back gently. "He didn't, and maybe now you see what I've seen all along. Love does not stay silent. Love does not leave you in the cold." Emma's chest rose and fell sharply. I saw her jaw tighten. Her hands stopped trembling. Slowly, she lifted her head, and her eyes met mine. Something new burned there. Something strong. "You're right," she said softly, but with growing strength. "They will never accept me. And he will never defend me." I kept waiting, kept hoping. But it was all a lie. Her words grew firmer with each breath. "I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to beg for love that should be freely given." My heart swelled with both pride and sorrow. My daughter, broken last night,
She took my hand,
was standing
her
taller
grip
before
steady.
me now. She had found
"Thank
her
you,
voice,
Mom,"
she said. "Thank you for reminding me who I am. I'm not their victim. I'm not their toy. I am your daughter, and I am strong." I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly. For the first time in years, I felt her strength press back against me, not weakness. She had awakened. Outside, the snow still fell, but through the window, I saw the clouds begin to part. A faint light shone through, soft and hopeful. Emma wiped her tears and straightened her shoulders. "I'm done chasing them," she said firmly. "From now on, I'll walk with dignity. If he cannot stand by me, then I will stand without him." Her words cut sharp and true. That night, my daughter stopped being a victim. She became her own defender. The next evening, Emma and I walked together through the snow-covered street. The cold air stung our cheeks, but neither of us shivered. We held our heads high, each step firm, leaving deep prints behind us. The mansion still glowed in the distance, its windows bright with golden light. We could hear faint music drifting across the frozen night. For a moment, Emma slowed, her eyes fixed on the house that had brought her so much pain. I squeezed her hand. "You don't need to look back," I said softly. She nodded, her lips pressed tight. Then she turned her gaze away and faced forward. We walked past the gates without stopping. No guards came, no family members appeared. It was as if the house no longer had any power over us. The snow kept falling, soft and endless, covering the path behind us. The cruel laughter of the night before faded into silence. Emma breathed deeply, her shoulders lighter than I had seen in years. "It feels different," she whispered. like I can finally breathe again. I smiled at her, pride swelling in my chest. That's because you're free, I said. She looked at me, her eyes no longer filled with sorrow, but with strength. I thought I needed them, she admitted. But I was wrong. All I needed was the courage to let go. Her words wrapped around me like warmth in the winter air. For so long she had chased their approval, begged for their love. Now she had chosen dignity instead. As we walked farther, the mansion disappeared behind the snowfall. Only the quiet streets and the silver moon remained. Emma leaned against me, not broken, but steady. Justice had not come from them. It had not come from apologies or change. Justice came from her decision, her refusal to kneel before cruelty again. I knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be more tears, more nights of doubt. But tonight was a beginning. Tonight, she had taken back her power. The snow covered everything, hiding the past, offering a clean white path forward. Together, we stepped into it. And for the first time, my daughter walked beside me with pride.